Hey heroes, Jonathan here at Night Knowledge, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about a few games that I've played recently but ended up stopping. Some were good, some were a bit frustrating, and I figured I'd share why I ended up putting them down. Let's dive in. First up is MechWarrior 5 Clans. Now I actually finished this game twice, once solo and once multiplayer, and in both I experienced the two endings each time. The story was cool, and I loved the clanner mech combat, but honestly, after you've beaten the game once, it loses a lot of its replayability, unlike MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries. The new Horde mode is meh. It feels like the devs just threw it in to keep players busy, but is really repetitive and doesn't add anything fresh to the game. After the main story, there just isn't much to do unless you're deep into the multiplayer scene, which for me wasn't enough to keep the fire going. Next up, we've got Mirthwood. This one's an indie RPG in early access, and while it has some really neat ideas, the melee combat just didn't click for me. It felt clunky and frustrating, and on top of that, the game is way too grindy in my opinion. You're constantly working to level up your gear, but the progress feels slow, and that really took me out of the experience. I really like the depth of romance and relationships in the game, but it's not fleshed out enough to be worthwhile to invest time and energy into it right now. Finally, the fast travel locations. They're set, and they're often really far from towns that you need to get to, making travel feel like a slog. It was enough for me to put the game down after a while. Then there's Void Crew. Now, this one has potential. It's a cooperative space sim where you and your friends crew up on a ship and take missions. But here's the problem. I essentially mastered the game with just a two-man crew in both the small and large ship designs. It's actually an extremely fun game. The real issue though was that not many of my friends were into it, and I didn't want to play with randoms, so I was always stuck being the pilot. And the successful runs, they could easily go over 3 hours. I get it, some people love those long sessions, but honestly, I prefer shorter, more manageable runs. After a few too many long hauls, it just wasn't worth the time anymore. Now, Elin is an interesting one, and I was playing this game constantly for a good couple weeks. But then I started playing The Doors of Trithias, and I enjoyed it far more. The English translation is way better, and the quests feel more enjoyable. But there's one thing that really bugs me in Elin, it's the character model. It doesn't change at all, no matter the gear you equip, which feels kind of limiting, especially when you've been playing for a while. On the flip side, I do love how you're never alone in Elin and how you can assemble a huge following of allies to join you in battle or work on your various bases. That adds a nice layer of depth to the game and really made the world feel more alive. But still, the lack of customization held me back from going all in. Finally, Stalker 2. Man, this game is a lot harder than I expected. I thought I was prepared for the post-apocalyptic world, but the anomalies, the constant beeping, and the invisible dangers really caught me off guard. Plus, the whole thing about not being able to tell who's friendly or hostile was super frustrating. Oh, and random storms, they came out of nowhere and they were brutal. I'm all up for challenging experiences, but Stalker 2 felt like it was constantly punishing me in ways that was just too much. I ended up walking away from it because it was honestly just draining at times. So those are a few games I stopped playing recently. Some were close, others not so much. I guess the biggest takeaway is that no matter how good a game starts, if it doesn't evolve or hold my interest long term, I'm likely going to move on. What about you? Are there any games you stopped playing for similar reasons? Do you think I should go back and give these games another try? Let me know in the comments below, and check out the rest of my channel for other videos on video games, board games, and other fun things. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.